Sometimes the forest speaks when no one is listening. Lucas Bennett whispered as he adjusted the strap of his worn rucksack and stepped onto the frost-coated trail, the morning light barely filtering through the thick canopy above, each snow-laden branch catching the soft glow and shaking lightly, as if nodding in greeting. Shadow, his 6-year-old German shepherd, moved beside him with precise, measured steps, amber eyes scanning every movement, ears twitching at the faintest rustle of pine needles and distant calls of unseen birds. The air carried the crisp tang of early winter, and the ground underfoot crunched rhythmically, echoing through the silent woods like a distant drumbeat of anticipation. Lucas paused, breath visible in the cold, and ran a gloved hand over the rough bark of a towering oak, noticing carvings worn smooth with age, symbols he couldn't immediately recognize, but that somehow seemed to hum with a quiet energy. Shadow stopped abruptly, nose twitching, tail stiff, letting out a low, questioning growl that vibrated through the clearing, and Lucas's heart quickened, a familiar mixture of excitement and caution settling into his chest. They followed the trail as it twisted deeper into the forest, each step revealing fragments of what seemed like a forgotten path, stones covered with frost, moss-draped logs forming natural arches, and shafts of pale sunlight casting shifting patterns across the snowy floor. Lucas felt the pull of the place, an almost magnetic sense that something lay ahead, something that the ordinary mind would dismiss yet the heart recognized as extraordinary. The wind whispered through the treetops, carrying faint metallic tangs and the scent of pine resin, and Shadow's paws left precise prints in the snow, marking a rhythm that Lucas could almost follow as if reading a secret language. Then, ahead, a faint glimmer caught his eye, a subtle reflection bouncing off an object half buried beneath a knotted root, its surface smooth and otherworldly in the pale light, inviting investigation yet demanding caution. Lucas knelt, brushing snow aside, revealing an intricately carved wooden box, small, sealed, and vibrating faintly. Under his touch, the air around it seeming to pulse in synchrony with his own heartbeat. Shadow leaned close, sniffing intently, ears high, amber eyes fixed as if confirming the importance of the discovery. Lucas exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of anticipation settle like a tangible presence around him, knowing that whatever lay within the box could change everything. Yet the forest held its breath, silent, patient, as if acknowledging that he had earned this moment through quiet persistence and unwavering attention to the subtle signals hidden in the ordinary wilderness. Lucas Bennett lifted the intricately carved wooden box carefully, brushing the remaining frost from its surface as Shadow circled nearby, ears alert and nose flicking at the faint metallic scent lingering in the cold forest air. The morning light shifted through the canopy, dappled beams casting ever-moving patterns across the snow-covered trail, and the subtle sound of wind weaving through the pines seemed almost like a whisper guiding him deeper into the mystery. Every step Lucas took felt deliberate, measured, the crunch of snow beneath his boots echoing in tandem with the soft thud of his own heartbeat, a rhythm mirrored by Shadow's cautious, yet confident, movements. He knelt to examine the box again, noting the intricate etchings, a language that seemed familiar yet foreign, almost as if it carried a story waiting for someone patient enough to listen. The forest around him held a profound quiet, punctuated only by the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional call of a distant bird, and in that silence, Lucas could feel the weight of something older than the trees themselves pressing gently on his senses. Shadow let out a low, encouraging growl, prompting Lucas to rise and follow a narrow offshoot of the trail that had appeared subtly beneath the frost, a path suggested not by sight alone, but by instinct and the faint vibrations in the earth that only Shadow could detect. They moved cautiously, stepping over frozen roots and sliding past moss-covered stones, the air carrying a crisp scent of pine, wet soil, and something faintly metallic, as though the forest itself had hidden secrets, waiting to be uncovered. Ahead, a faint glimmer between two massive oaks drew Lucas in, an ethereal light that seemed to pulse in harmony with Shadow's attentive stance, casting long, shifting shadows that danced across the snow and painted the forest floor in patterns both mesmerizing and strange. As he approached, the ground beneath the glimmer gave way slightly, revealing a hollow space concealed by a thick tangle of roots and ice-crusted leaves, and Lucas felt a momentary chill, a mixture of anticipation and awe, while Shadow leaned closer, pawing gently at the entrance with careful insistence. Lucas reached down, hands brushing against the rough bark and icy soil, feeling a subtle vibration, a hum that seemed alive, responding to the presence of the box and his touch, as though the forest acknowledged the arrival of someone who had been listening all along. He slid the box into the hollow, adjusting it until it rested securely, and in that instant, the light intensified, a soft radiance spilling over the edges of the hollow, illuminating delicate carvings on nearby roots and stones that had been invisible before. The air shimmered faintly, and Lucas caught the subtle movement of something shifting in the shadows, not threatening, but inviting, as if the forest itself wanted to reveal its hidden story. Shadow sat back on his haunches, gaze steady, amber eyes reflecting the pale light, while Lucas exhaled slowly, feeling a profound sense of connection, not only to the trail and the forest, but to something greater, something almost divine, that had guided him to this point. Each breath seemed to echo in the crisp air, carrying with it the sense that they had crossed an invisible threshold, entering a space where the ordinary rules no longer fully applied and where patience, awareness, and trust would be rewarded in ways beyond expectation. Lucas Bennett slowly stepped into the hollow space revealed by the forest, the light inside shifting in soft, undulating waves that seemed to breathe with a life of its own, casting faint reflections onto the snow-dusted walls and roots that surrounded him. Shadow moved carefully beside him, nose low, sniffing every crevice and crack, amber eyes flicking toward the faint shimmer that danced along the edges of the hollow, alert to even the smallest change. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth, pine resin, and a hint of something metallic that Lucas could not place, an aroma that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up and sent a shiver down his spine, not of fear, but of profound anticipation. He knelt to examine the carvings along the roots, intricate symbols that seemed almost to pulse under the subtle light, patterns that hinted at stories and knowledge hidden for generations, and he traced them carefully with gloved fingers, feeling a vibration, gentle and rhythmic, as though the forest itself was acknowledging his presence. Shadow whined softly, nudging his hand with a wet nose, urging him to continue further along the narrow path that led deeper into the hollow, where the air grew warmer, the light brighter, and the sound of running water trickled from somewhere unseen. Lucas adjusted his pack and followed, each step deliberate, boots brushing against the icy floor and moss-covered stones, the trail curving unexpectedly, revealing a small clearing where the light pooled like liquid gold over a circular stone platform, engraved with markings that mirrored those on the roots. He set the box down carefully in the center of the platform, the surface vibrating faintly beneath its weight, and stepped back, watching as the light intensified, illuminating the carvings on the platform, creating shadows that moved and shifted like living things. Shadow sat rigidly, tail flicking, ears high, eyes focused intently on the platform, and Lucas exhaled, a mixture of awe and wonder filling his chest, knowing that this was more than a simple discovery. It was a moment where the ordinary world had shifted, revealing something extraordinary hidden within the forest. The gentle hum in the air grew louder, resonating through the hollow, weaving between the trees and echoing off the distant cliffs, and Lucas felt a calm certainty settle over him, a sense that the forest had been waiting for someone patient, someone attentive enough to follow its subtle guidance, and that the secrets it now revealed were a reward not just for curiosity, but for respect, perseverance, and quiet observation. He looked down at Shadow, amber eyes reflecting the glow from the platform, and felt a connection deeper than words could describe, a shared understanding that they were both part of something timeless, a small piece of a larger story that had been quietly unfolding long before they arrived, and would continue long after they left, a story that combined the rhythm of the forest, the hidden knowledge of those who came before, and the instinctive wisdom of a loyal companion who always knew more. Then he led on. Lucas Bennett stood quietly for a moment, letting the warmth of the light from the platform wash over him, and Shadow sat faithfully by his side, tail sweeping gently over the frosted floor, as if marking the rhythm of the forest itself. The carvings on the stone platform glimmered softly, intricate patterns catching and bending the pale light, revealing shapes that seemed familiar yet just beyond comprehension, like memories long buried under years of quiet snow. Lucas ran his gloved fingers along the edges of the platform, feeling a subtle vibration that pulsed in sync with his own heartbeat, a quiet acknowledgement from the forest that he had been patient, respectful, and observant enough to earn this revelation. The gentle hum of air shifted, carrying with it the faint scent of pine resin mixed with something indefinably metallic, a reminder that the place was alive, attentive, and aware of those who entered its hidden sanctum. Shadow raised his head, ears twitching, amber eyes scanning every movement in the clearing, a silent partner attuned to the unseen energies of the space, nudging Lucas forward with a soft nudge of his nose toward a narrow passage partially concealed by roots and overhanging frost. Lucas stepped carefully, boots pressing into the soft, snow-covered ground, tracing the winding passage that led deeper into the heart of the hollow, each breath visible in the crisp air, mingling with the faint mist that rose from cracks in the earth. The air grew warmer, carrying with it the distant sound of trickling water and the faintest whisper of a melody, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakably present, like a memory echoing through the forest. He followed Shadow through the twisting path, moving with deliberate care, noticing every detail, the texture of the moss-covered roots, the subtle tilt of ancient stones, the way sunlight filtered in fragments through the high canopy, dancing across the walls and illuminating hidden carvings that had not yet revealed their meaning. Ahead, a small natural clearing appeared, bathed in a soft, golden light that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once, reflecting off a shallow pool of water that rippled gently despite the still air, and at its center rested an object, suspended above the surface, rotating slowly as though moved by an invisible hand, casting prismatic reflections that shifted across the clearing like living art. Lucas knelt to study it, feeling the pulse of energy beneath his fingertips, a rhythm that seemed to communicate directly with him, affirming that his presence, patience, and attention had not gone unnoticed. Shadow sat beside him, eyes fixed, tail low and steady, a grounding presence as the forest whispered secrets older than time itself. Lucas drew a deep breath, allowing the wonder and awe of the discovery to settle within him, sensing the interconnectedness of the light, the water, the carvings, and the faithful companion at his side. And he realized that this hidden sanctuary was not just a place, but a message, a quiet, persistent reminder that patience, awareness, and kindness could uncover truths beyond the ordinary world, and that some of the most profound mysteries were revealed not through force or haste, but through careful observation and a willingness to listen to the subtle language of the earth and the creatures who share it. Lucas Bennett felt a quiet thrill as the soft golden light from the suspended object danced across the surface of the shallow pool, illuminating tiny ripples that moved in patterns almost like deliberate messages from the forest itself. Shadow remained close, body tense yet composed, ears angled toward the subtle vibrations in the ground and the gentle hum that seemed to emanate from the heart of the clearing. Lucas knelt again, tracing the faint etchings on the platform with careful fingers, realizing that each symbol aligned with the flow of light and the movement of the water, creating a rhythm that spoke not in words but in sensation, a language older than any he had learned, one that required patience, awareness, and reverence. The air was alive with quiet energy, carrying the scent of damp pine, cold stone, and something faintly metallic, an aroma that seemed to bind the elements of the hollow together into a single, coherent presence. He adjusted his pack, taking a deep breath, and let his gaze wander over the delicate carvings on the roots, the shimmering light, and the small bubbles rising from beneath the platform, noticing how every detail interacted seamlessly with the others, like an intricate clockwork designed by nature itself. Shadow shifted slightly, nudging Lucas with his nose toward a narrow channel at the edge of the pool, the water glimmering as if coaxing them to follow, and Lucas rose carefully, boots pressing softly into the snowy floor, feeling the steady pulse of the place resonate through his body with each step. The forest beyond seemed to lean closer, branches swaying gently despite the stillness, as if observing their progress. And Lucas could not help but feel that every sound, every flicker of light, and every subtle motion was a message intended for those willing to listen. As they advanced, the channel opened to reveal a small alcove lined with moss-covered stones and delicate ferns, the light now pooling in a soft, ethereal glow, casting shadows that danced across the walls like living figures. Lucas knelt once more, resting a hand on the smooth stone of the alcove, and sensed the depth of centuries hidden here, the silent guardianship of the forest over the knowledge it held. Shadow sat beside him, tail low but swaying slowly, eyes bright and attentive, reflecting the subtle illumination, and Lucas felt a profound sense of connection, as if the boundaries between himself, the dog, and the surrounding forest had softened into one harmonious awareness. Each breath, visible in the crisp morning air, carried with it the quiet satisfaction of discovery, tempered by the recognition that this was only the beginning of a deeper journey, one that required not haste but the measured steps of observation, patience, and trust, and that the forest would continue to reveal its secrets in time, to those who honored its quiet language and listened with eyes, ears, and heart fully open. Lucas Bennett continued forward through the softly illuminated alcove, Shadow pacing close at his side, the faint glow from the suspended objects spilling across their path like liquid warmth, illuminating moss-covered stones and frost-laden roots in gentle, shifting patterns. Each step carried a soft crunch, blending with the subtle hum that seemed to resonate from the very ground beneath them, a sound that spoke of age, wisdom, and a patient watchfulness that had endured for decades. Lucas bent slightly to brush a stray icicle from a low-hanging branch, feeling the cold metal bite gently against his gloved fingers while noting how the light refracted in delicate beams across the tiny droplets clinging to the leaves. Shadow stopped, ears high, nose twitching as if interpreting a message in the air that Lucas could only sense as a subtle shift in temperature and a faint vibration running through the stones underfoot. The trail opened into a wider chamber, where the walls curved gracefully, draped with ferns and delicate vines that glistened with frost, and the soft trickle of water echoed from a hidden spring, its sound weaving seamlessly with the quiet hum of the forest sanctuary. Lucas took a deep breath, letting the crisp, pine-laden air fill his lungs, and felt a grounding calm settle over him, a quiet reassurance that every careful step, every moment of attentiveness, had led them here with purpose. He knelt briefly to examine a cluster of carvings along the stone floor, intricate and precise, telling stories in a language of shapes and patterns that seemed to shift subtly as he watched, a narrative written by time and the elements rather than by hands alone. Shadow rested his paw lightly on Lucas's knee, a silent companion affirming the significance of their discovery, and Lucas traced the outline of a circular design in the frost, noticing how it seemed to interact with the suspended light, casting long, dancing shadows that rippled across the chamber like living shapes. He exhaled slowly, the sound blending with the gentle whisper of the water, feeling the harmony of the space and the delicate balance that the forest had preserved here for generations. Ahead, a narrow passage led upward, faint sunlight piercing through cracks in the canopy above, signaling a return to the wider forest, yet the energy of the hollow lingered, a subtle vibrancy that pulsed with quiet life. Lucas rose carefully, adjusting the strap of his pack, and followed Shadow as the dog led the way with instinctive precision, amber eyes scanning constantly, alert to every whisper of movement, every play of light and shadow, carrying Lucas forward with a sense of wonder and anticipation. Each step felt like a conversation with the forest itself, a dialogue of patience, respect, and quiet discovery. And as they moved toward the faint beams of sunlight filtering through the trees, Lucas realized that this place, with all its hidden marvels and secrets, was more than a discovery. It was a reminder that the world held spaces where patience, attentiveness, and reverence revealed truths that could not be rushed, seen only by those willing to walk carefully, breathe deeply, and observe with both heart and mind fully engaged. Lucas Bennett paused at the edge of the sunlit clearing, taking a slow, deep breath as the warmth of the morning sun touched his face through the forest canopy, the frost on the moss-covered stones sparkling like a scattering of tiny diamonds. Shadow sat obediently by his side, tail brushing gently against the snow, amber eyes reflecting the dancing light, as if acknowledging the significance of this moment, aware that they had come far into a place not meant for ordinary footsteps. The air was filled with the subtle, earthy aroma of pine needles and wet stone, mingling with the faint metallic tang that seemed to linger from the hidden hollow below, and Lucas felt a calm focus settle over him, a deep resonance that drew his attention to the soft ripple of the water. In the shallow pool ahead, he knelt to inspect the delicate carvings on a stone slab partially submerged at the edge of the pool, tracing the patterns with gloved fingers and noting how the sunlight played along the intricate lines, shifting as though responding to the presence of an observer who had waited patiently, watching and listening to the subtle cues of the forest. Shadow let out a quiet whine and nudged Lucas toward a narrow, twisting path that led further along the edge of the clearing, the trail framed by frost-laden branches and a gentle curtain of mist that hung in the soft light, giving the forest a feeling of being suspended between moments, caught in a quiet, eternal pause. Each step Lucas took was careful, deliberate, boots pressing softly into the snow, the sound muted by the thick layer of frost, and with every movement he felt a deeper connection to the surroundings, an understanding that the forest had a rhythm, a pattern of life and presence that was subtle but undeniable, one that required attentiveness and quiet observation to comprehend fully. As he and Shadow followed the trail, the ambient light shifted, glinting off frost-covered leaves and casting elongated shadows that danced along the uneven ground, creating shapes that seemed almost familiar, like echoes of ancient stories waiting to be rediscovered. Lucas adjusted the strap of his rucksack and exhaled slowly, letting his eyes roam over the details of the forest, noticing the tiny tendrils of mist curling around tree roots, the soft glimmer of ice along the edges of rocks, and the gentle sway of branches as though the forest itself was breathing in unison with them. Shadow moved ahead, pausing now and then to sniff and listen, guiding Lucas with an instinctive intelligence born of years spent reading subtle changes in the environment, a silent partner in their shared discovery. Lucas felt a quiet anticipation building as they approached a cluster of large, ancient stones that seemed to form a natural archway, the sunlight filtering through in thin, golden shafts, illuminating patches of moss and delicate ferns, creating an atmosphere that felt at once timeless and alive, a hidden space that had preserved its secrets patiently until the right observer arrived. He knelt briefly to touch the moss, feeling the soft, damp texture beneath his fingers and noting how the light shifted across the surfaces, highlighting intricate textures and patterns that had gone unnoticed by casual eyes. Shadow sat quietly beside him, amber eyes alert and reflecting the dappled sunlight, and Lucas felt a profound sense of connection, a quiet understanding that this hidden place, with all its subtle harmonies and carefully preserved details, had welcomed them, and that every observation, every patient step, had brought them to a moment of clarity where the ordinary and the extraordinary met in perfect balance. Lucas Bennett followed Shadow through the narrow archway, the soft golden light spilling across the frost-laden floor, illuminating intricate patterns in the moss that seemed to twist and turn like a language only the forest could read. Each breath he took mingled with the crisp, cold air, carrying the faint scent of pine and wet earth, and the subtle metallic tang that had guided them here persisted, as though the space itself wished to be noticed. The trail widened into a small glade, sunlight streaming through gaps in the canopy, scattering across delicate ferns and frozen puddles that mirrored the sky above, creating an illusion of walking on glass. Shadow padded ahead cautiously, ears high, sniffing and alert to vibrations in the frozen soil, guiding Lucas toward a natural stone pedestal at the center of the clearing, its surface etched with patterns similar to those found in the hidden hollow below, connecting the spaces in a rhythm that seemed almost deliberate. Lucas knelt beside the pedestal, brushing away a layer of frost to reveal faint carvings, their depth and precision suggesting careful thought, the forest around them silent, observing, and patient as he traced each line with gloved fingers, feeling the faint hum of energy pulsing beneath the stone. He looked up at Shadow, whose amber eyes reflected the light and conveyed a quiet understanding, a shared anticipation for what might emerge next, and Lucas felt a deep sense of connection to both the place and his companion, recognizing that every careful step and moment of observation had led them to this point. The sunlight shifted slowly, casting long, intricate shadows that moved across the glade, playing on the delicate frost and highlighting patterns in the stone that seemed to rearrange themselves subtly, as if responding to presence, attention, and respect. A gentle breeze whispered through the trees, rustling branches and sending frozen droplets scattering across the floor, each tiny motion catching the light like miniature stars, and Lucas felt the subtle rhythm of the forest, a cadence that guided his breathing, his gaze, and his awareness. As he leaned closer to examine a small indentation on the pedestal, a soft glow emerged from within, warm and inviting, illuminating the carvings in a way that revealed connections he had not noticed before, intricate lines forming shapes that hinted at stories, directions, and long-held secrets. Shadows shifted, pawing lightly at the edge of the pedestal, prompting Lucas to adjust his position and notice a faint trail leading beyond the glade, marked by delicate etchings in the frost and moss, subtle signs that this hidden sanctuary extended further, inviting exploration with gentle insistence. Lucas exhaled slowly, feeling a profound sense of calm and wonder, the interplay of light, shadow, and natural design filling him with awe, and he realized that the forest had carefully orchestrated this space to reveal itself to those who moved with respect, patience, and attentiveness, offering insight, beauty, and a quiet sense of guidance to those willing to observe deeply. The sound of water trickling from an unseen source echoed softly, blending with the subtle hum beneath the stones and the rustle of the canopy above, creating a layered symphony that seemed to speak directly to him, reminding him that some truths were revealed not in haste, but through steady observation and a willingness to listen with both heart and mind fully open. And as Lucas rose to follow Shadow along the faint trail beyond the glade, he carried with him the quiet, luminous presence of the sanctuary, a living testament to patience, care, and the enduring mystery of the forest. Lucas Bennett stepped into a wider opening where sunlight poured generously through a high canopy, casting warm golden stripes across the frost-speckled forest floor, and Shadow moved ahead with measured precision, tail low, ears alert, as if guiding him into a place where time seemed to pause and the ordinary rules of the world softened at the edges. The air was saturated with the scent of damp earth and pine needles, carrying the faint metallic hint that had marked their journey, and Lucas inhaled deeply, feeling the crisp morning air fill his lungs while the soft hum of energy from the hidden hollow pulsed faintly through the stones beneath his boots. Small rivulets of water traced their way along the moss-covered rocks, catching sunlight and scattering miniature rainbows that danced across the nearby ferns, and he noticed how every detail, the curve of a root, the pattern of frost on leaves, the glint of ice along stones, seemed intentionally arranged to convey subtle guidance to the observant. Shadow paused beside a large, flat stone, paw raised, nose twitching toward an intricate carving etched into the surface, delicate lines spiraling in a pattern reminiscent of the earlier carvings in the hollow, and Lucas knelt to examine it, brushing away the frost to reveal a symbol that seemed almost to pulse beneath his fingers, alive with a quiet presence. As he traced the lines, he felt a subtle resonance in the air, a connection to something beyond immediate perception, and the gentle rustle of leaves above suggested a movement not from wind alone, as if the forest itself was acknowledging their arrival, encouraging patience and attentiveness. The sunlight shifted slowly, elongating shadows and revealing hidden details in the surrounding stones and moss, patterns that seemed to tell stories of centuries past, waiting for someone willing to see, touch, and listen with care. Lucas adjusted his pack and rose, taking a step back to observe the entire clearing, noting how the light, water, carvings, and natural forms interacted harmoniously, creating a space that felt at once sacred and alive, a living testament to hidden knowledge preserved by the patient rhythms of the forest. Shadow sat beside him, eyes reflecting the golden light, calm yet alert, a constant companion interpreting the subtle cues of the environment and inviting Lucas to do the same. Each breath he took carried awareness, connecting him to the textures, sounds, and scents of the clearing, reinforcing the realization that discovery was as much about inner presence as external observation. He noticed a narrow pathway leading away from the clearing, partially obscured by frost-laden branches and curling ferns, and understood that the journey was not yet complete, that the forest had more to reveal to those who continued with quiet respect and careful attention. With a final glance at the glowing carvings beneath his fingertips and the shimmering pool of water, Lucas stepped forward, Shadow at his side, the two of them moving as one into the next unfolding chapter of the hidden sanctuary, each step carrying the promise of deeper understanding and the subtle wonder of secrets patiently waiting to be discovered by hearts that dared to remain still and fully aware. Lucas Bennett and Shadow emerged into a wider opening where the sunlight poured generously, illuminating a hidden grove surrounded by towering evergreens dusted in frost. The golden light reflected off patches of ice on the forest floor, creating a shimmering mosaic that seemed to shift with every breath of wind. Shadow padded cautiously ahead, tail low, ears high, guiding Lucas with instinctive precision, his amber eyes reflecting the soft glow, alert to subtle movements and changes in the environment that the human eye might easily miss. Lucas adjusted his rucksack, inhaling the crisp, pine-scented air, feeling a sense of anticipation settle in his chest, as if the forest itself had been preparing for this moment. He stepped carefully, boots pressing into the snow-dusted ground, noticing the faint patterns left by the previous footsteps of animals and perhaps even those of the forest's hidden caretakers. Ahead, a stone formation rose gently from the earth, its surface etched with symbols similar to those discovered in the hollow and along the earlier trails, intricate spirals and angular shapes that seemed to hum softly with the energy of the place. Lucas knelt, brushing frost from the carvings, and felt a subtle vibration beneath his fingers, like a pulse that matched his own heartbeat, a quiet acknowledgement from the forest that they had arrived where they were meant to be. Shadow settled beside him, watching intently, paw occasionally shifting, tail moving in slow, deliberate sweeps. The grove was alive with the quiet sounds of nature, the distant trickle of water from a hidden spring, the rustle of leaves high in the canopy, the faint creak of branches swaying gently in the breeze. And yet there was a stillness that spoke of patience, observation, and respect. Lucas traced the carvings, noting how the lines intertwined, forming a delicate map of patterns that seemed to suggest direction, purpose, and a story long hidden. Each breath he drew carried a sense of presence, connecting him not only to the physical details around him, but to the energy that seemed to inhabit every stone, branch, and drop of water in the clearing. Light glinted off the shallow stream at the edge of the grove, scattering reflections across the moss-covered stones, and Lucas followed Shadow toward the gentle curve of the water, noticing subtle etchings on stones that had gone unnoticed before, small symbols almost hidden beneath moss and frost. He felt a quiet awe at the precision and care of the place, understanding that the forest had designed this sanctuary with deliberate intention, a hidden network of beauty, energy, and knowledge preserved for those patient enough to explore its depths. Shadow paused at a small ledge, paw raised, nose quivering, and Lucas knelt beside him, feeling the cool stone beneath his fingertips, sensing the gentle vibration, the soft hum of the earth and air that indicated they were standing on a nexus of hidden significance. The sunlight continued to shift across the grove, elongating shadows, highlighting carvings, and casting warm patterns across the frost and stone, and Lucas felt an unspoken clarity settle in his mind. This place, with all its subtle harmonies and carefully preserved details, held secrets meant to guide, inspire, and reward those who moved with awareness, patience, and reverence. He rose slowly, adjusting his rucksack and following Shadow along a faint, winding path that led further into the grove, each step deliberate, carrying the quiet promise of new discoveries, a deeper connection to the forest, and the understanding that some of the most profound truths revealed themselves only to those who truly listened and observed. Lucas Bennett followed the narrow trail deeper into the grove. Sunlight dappled through the towering pines, casting shifting patterns across frost-dusted stones and delicate ferns, each step a quiet conversation with the forest around him. Shadow moved just ahead, ears high, nose twitching as he interpreted subtle vibrations in the frozen soil, guiding Lucas with instinctive precision, aware of nuances that the human senses could only perceive dimly. The air carried a mixture of pine resin, cold earth, and the faint metallic tang that had marked their journey from the hollow, a signature of the forest's hidden energy. As they progressed, the trail opened to a small glade, circular and secluded, where sunlight pooled over a series of flat stones arranged almost deliberately, etched with patterns and symbols mirroring those seen in previous discoveries. Lucas knelt beside one stone, brushing away frost to reveal spirals and angular lines that seemed to hum softly under his fingertips, a rhythm that matched the quiet pulse of the forest around him. He traced the carvings carefully, noting the subtle variations, the way the lines connected like the veins of a leaf, or the meandering course of a stream, conveying stories of patience, observation, and quiet reverence preserved over centuries. Shadow shifted closer, paw resting lightly against Lucas's knee, amber eyes reflecting the golden sunlight, a reminder of their partnership and shared understanding as guardians of the discovery. In the silence, the faint sound of trickling water emerged from a hidden source, mingling with the gentle hum beneath the stones and the rustle of distant branches swaying in the breeze, creating a layered, immersive symphony of nature and hidden energy. Lucas rose slowly, adjusting his pack and taking a deliberate step back, observing how the sunlight refracted across the glade, illuminating carvings, frost, and shallow puddles and patterns that seemed to respond to presence and attention, a subtle choreography orchestrated by the forest itself. A gentle breeze stirred, carrying whispers of movement and the scent of pine and moss, and Lucas felt the sense that this sanctuary was alive, observing, and patient, rewarding quiet curiosity and measured steps. Shadow paused at a low stone ledge, paw raised, nose quivering, and Lucas approached to find a small indentation carved deliberately into the surface, a receptacle for something long forgotten yet preserved by the care of the forest. He placed his hand lightly on the stone, feeling the subtle vibration, the quiet hum of energy acknowledging their presence, and a calm certainty filled him, a knowledge that patience and attentiveness had guided them to a point where understanding and revelation intersected. Each breath, visible in the crisp air, reinforced the sense of unity with the surroundings, the carvings, the light, and the subtle movements of shadow, all forming a rhythm of awareness that was at once profound and grounding. The narrow path beyond the glade beckoned gently, frost clinging to the roots and stones as if marking a careful guide, and Lucas understood that the forest had more to reveal, that the lessons of observation, reverence, and quiet patience were still unfolding, and that every step taken in harmony with the subtle cues of the environment carried the promise of deeper insight, subtle wonder, and the enduring mystery of the hidden sanctuary. Lucas Bennett and Shadow moved slowly along the faint trail that curved gently upward through the grove, sunlight filtering through the tall pines and illuminating delicate frost crystals clinging to branches, casting dancing patterns across the soft, snow-speckled floor. Each step felt purposeful, measured, as Lucas listened to the subtle symphony of the forest, the soft trickle of water from a hidden stream, the rustle of pine needles in the breeze, and the distant call of a bird that seemed unusually close and attentive. Shadow padded ahead, nose low, tail sweeping gently, ears constantly shifting as he interpreted subtle vibrations in the frozen ground, guiding Lucas with a quiet assurance that came from instinct and experience. The air carried the familiar sense of pine resin, cold stone, and a faint metallic tang that seemed to hum softly in the spaces between sounds, connecting Lucas to every movement and echo within the grove. The trail opened into a small clearing surrounded by ancient stones and low moss-covered ridges, where sunlight pooled in scattered patches, illuminating intricate carvings that reflected the patterns and rhythms observed throughout their journey, creating a sense of continuity and hidden intention in every line. Lucas knelt to brush snow from a flat stone, revealing spirals and angular etchings that seemed to respond to his touch with a subtle vibration, as though the forest recognized the presence of one who moved with care and attentiveness. Shadow leaned close, resting a paw lightly on Lucas's leg, amber eyes fixed on the carvings, alert and patient, a silent participant in the communion with this hidden place. The soft light shifted gradually, highlighting details previously unnoticed. Delicate fissures in the stone filled with frost, tiny rivulets of water tracing gentle arcs along the moss, and the intricate interweaving of roots that framed the clearing, each element contributing to a larger, almost imperceptible design. Lucas traced the carvings slowly, feeling the rhythm and flow beneath his fingers, sensing the quiet messages embedded in the patterns, a language that spoke of observation, patience, and the passage of time. He rose carefully, taking in the full expanse of the clearing, noting the interplay of light and shadow, the subtle undulations of the forest floor, and the way sunlight scattered across the frost, creating patterns that shifted with the slightest movement of air and perspective. Shadow moved slightly ahead, pausing to sniff a hidden indentation along the edge of the stones, prompting Lucas to follow and discover a shallow depression, deliberately carved, almost imperceptible, yet resonant with significance. He pressed his gloved hand lightly against it, feeling a faint pulse of energy, a subtle acknowledgement that their careful observation and steady presence had been noted and welcomed. The air seemed to hum softly, blending the trickle of water, the rustle of leaves, and the gentle whisper of wind into a harmonious rhythm, reinforcing the sense that the forest had guided them to a point where insight, discovery, and quiet understanding converged. Lucas exhaled slowly, feeling the connection to shadow, the carvings, the subtle light, and the surrounding environment, a profound sense of calm settling over him as he realized that the forest had revealed its secrets not by force or haste, but through careful attention, patient observation, and respect for the rhythms of nature. Each breath carried awareness, grounding him fully in the present, and as he stepped forward along the continuation of the trail, shadow at his side, Lucas felt a quiet anticipation for what the next unfolding moment would reveal, knowing that the sanctuary, with all its intricate details, hidden patterns, and subtle energies, held more lessons and insights for those willing to walk carefully, observe keenly, and listen fully with both heart and mind. Lucas Bennett paused at the edge of a gentle rise, sunlight spilling over frost-kissed ferns and illuminating the delicate patterns etched into stones along the narrow trail, and Shadow sat beside him, amber eyes reflecting the warm light, tail sweeping slowly as though marking the rhythm of this final, quiet moment. The forest around them held a deep stillness, broken only by the soft murmur of a hidden stream and the occasional rustle of distant branches, as if every living thing had paused to witness their journey. Lucas knelt, placing his hand lightly on a stone that bore the last set of carvings they had encountered, feeling the subtle vibration beneath his glove, a gentle acknowledgement that the forest had guided them faithfully and had rewarded their patience, attention, and reverence. Shadow leaned close, nuzzling against him, a steady, grounding presence that mirrored Lucas's own sense of awe and connection to the surroundings. The sunlight shifted, elongating shadows and scattering across the frost in intricate patterns that seemed almost to tell a story of its own, each subtle movement of light revealing previously unseen details, delicate veins in leaves, tiny rivulets of water tracing graceful arcs along moss-covered roots, and subtle color variations in the stones that seemed to pulse with the quiet energy of the forest. Lucas exhaled slowly, letting the crisp air fill his lungs, and allowed himself a rare moment of stillness, observing the harmony between light, shadow, and the small signs of life that surrounded him, understanding that this place, hidden and preserved over centuries, was a living testament to patience, curiosity, and quiet devotion. Shadow rose, pacing slightly ahead, ears alert, nose twitching, as if sensing a subtle shift in the rhythm of the grove, and Lucas followed, stepping carefully over frost-dusted roots and stones, each movement deliberate, mindful of the delicate balance of the environment. They arrived at a small natural clearing, sunlight pooling in a soft, golden glow that highlighted a shallow pool of water, its surface smooth and mirror-like, reflecting the intricate canopy above and the faint shimmer of the distant carvings. Lucas knelt beside the water, tracing the edge with gloved fingers, feeling the gentle hum of energy beneath the surface, and noticed how the reflections shifted subtly with each breath and movement, as though the forest was alive and responsive, engaging with their presence in a quiet dialogue of light, texture, and sound. Shadow settled beside him, tail low, eyes bright and attentive, sharing the stillness and understanding that the culmination of their journey was not a single revelation, but a harmonious moment of clarity, emerging of presence, patience, and trust. Lucas rose slowly, looking across the grove, absorbing the patterns of light, the subtle movements of the forest, and the shared quiet with his companion, feeling a profound sense of completion, a recognition that the forest had revealed its secrets gently, gracefully, and in alignment with their own attentiveness. With one final glance at the shimmering pool, the carvings, and the gentle sway of branches above, Lucas exhaled, a quiet smile touching his lips, and Shadow nudged him gently, as if reminding him that the journey had reached its natural pause, a space where understanding, wonder, and connection with the hidden world around them had merged into a single, luminous experience that would remain quietly alive in memory, a testament to the patience, awareness, and reverent presence required to truly see and feel the forest's hidden truths.